Welcome back to the Life of Phys Podcast. I'm your host, Tyson Martin. On this follow-up episode, I reconnect with Jonathan Pitts Wiley, a photographer whose work continues to evolve through intention, observation, and long-term commitment to the craft. Since his first appearance on the show, Jonathan has remained focused on refining his photographic voice, placing less emphasis on immediate outcomes and more on consistency, curiosity, and the quiet discipline required to build meaningful bodies of work. His approach reflects a deeper relationship with time, presence, and the environments he photographs. In this conversation, Jonathan discusses what has shifted since we last spoke, including creative growth, perspective, and the realities of staying engaged with photography over the long haul. We explore long-term projects, navigating uncertainty, trusting the process, and why honest work often develops slowly, away from attention or metrics. This episode is for photographers and creatives interested in documenting photography, personal projects, creative sustainability, and developing a deeper, more intentional relationship with their work. If you believe photography is about learning how to see, not just producing images, this conversation offers grounded insight and thoughtful perspective. Now let's get to the show. All right, we're sitting here with my homie, Jonathan Pitts Wiley, episode 10 originator, number 10. The episode that 90% of shows never make it to. And here he is. He's going to be back. I'm going to say he's probably going to be in the 90s for this follow-up. So I'm pretty excited to have you back, brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm really excited to be back on and really proud of what, we got from Ted. And apparently you had an 11th, so I didn't ruin the show. I'd love to hear that. And no, it's been dope to just see the show continue to evolve and to see you continue to make progress with it. So it really is a pleasure to be back.
Oh man, it's been a journey. But meeting and having friends like you, who have always supported the vision and who have become my friends since we recorded on the show. I mean, that hearing those words, makes me feel like I'm on the right track and I'm making some waves and things are happening. So thank you, sir.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think people who show up for community in an authentic and consistent way, I think we have a responsibility to support people like that. And I think you are a person like that, and good people doing their best to do right, live right, be right, well, not be right in the sense of like, supremacy sense, but, just how they move through the world. I think that's important and it's admirable because it takes courage. I don't think we often consider the ways in which discipline takes courage, and there's so many reasons to relent or give up or get pulled into other projects and things, and just lifing in the way that it is wont to do. So to see you persist in the way that you have, while also prioritizing, or at least endeavoring to prioritize your health, and knowing when you're like, nah, I gotta chill, I gotta slow down, and not simply doing the like, well, let me just power through and do all that. No, and just, I think that that's an easier thing to trust when you are doing good and righteous work. Saying to my friend the other day, a good idea never goes bad.
Yep.
And but you can waste a good idea. You can let burnout corrupt a good idea. And so seeing the ways in which you have navigated being a public person and sharing publicly in the way that you do, while also, in those times and in those moments where you've had challenges and you've needed to address them and you didn't equivocate about that. I mean, there's just, there's lessons there. So,
Well, burnout's not going to be part of the show. Last time I burned myself out, I ended up in the hospital. So we're not going there again. I'm not. I don't ever wish that on anyone. You know, sitting in that room for 3.5 weeks, not able to leave the room. You know, on that being like, you know, no contact order and kind of going crazy.
right.
And the first week and two after I was out of the woods, um, all I did was stress about the show because I wasn't home to release an episode. I set this unrealistic goal of 2 episodes a week. And, you know, plus full-time job, plus being a dad, you know, taking care of life responsibilities. And when I got home, it was all remembering and learning. While I was in there, I heard a quote by Marlon Wayans said, I got more days behind me than I have left ahead of me. I don't got time to worry about your bullshit. And I
That's
changed.
bars right there.
Yeah. And it's funny, I reached out to him and I sent his agent a email and said, hey, look, I would love to have him on my show. Like, I think what he does is amazing. I met him years ago when we worked on Scary Movie together. But like, here's what I'm going to tell you. He had this quote. This quote changed my life and my perspective. So I just wanted to say, whether it's from me directly to him or from you to him, I just want to say thank you. So my twist on it was, you know, the same beginning. I've got more days behind me than I have left ahead of me, but this world deserves the best version of me now. So every day I'm getting better because I'm still learning to deal with my past traumas. I'm still learning how to try to implement the real me into day-to-day situations that have been established for years of that persona that you had to be, which I don't want to be anymore. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I've been working hard at not only sharing my story for people to understand, like, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have therapy. It's okay to be on medication. The biggest thing is, remember, it's okay to talk. It's okay to share what you're going through with your friends. And in that moment of sharing, those are the real people that will come forward. The ones that will sit there and be like authentic and true to you. You okay?
Yeah, you know, it was just I think my son is just being loud downstairs, and I can't tell if it's like if you can hear it on your end of things. So I don't want to mess up the recording.
My son's being loud downstairs too, so
Okay, great.
we're just rolling with it.
Loud son, got it.
but
Tracking.
but we just have to do our best every single day. You know, our best to be the best version of us that day. You know, the worst thing you can say to yourself is, well, 6 months from now, I'm going to be the best person I've ever been. Because that doesn't work. That could be a goal, but you have to work on it every day. You can't sit and rest on the fact that you put those words out.
100%.
And I struggle with it all the time. Like, I still wake up and I'm like, man, I don't want to do today. I don't want to deal with people today. I don't want to get up at 5 a.m. and record an episode before I wake people up to get ready for school and work and before I go to work. Like, I don't want to do that. But guess what? I'm doing it 3 times next week. You know, and that's what I have to do because these stories that I share are so important from the perspective of the artist that I'm willing to get up at 5 a.m. and have a conversation because they deserve to have their story shared.
Sure.
And
I
that's
appreciated the episode. Rachel Gallipo?
Gallipo, yeah.
Gallipo, excuse
Yeah.
me. Sorry, mispronunciation there.
Rachel's awesome.
I enjoyed that episode. I was listening to it the other day while I was getting some things in order in the studio, and I know you was up, you know, early in the early morning. So no, I know you out here doing it.
That was actually our second because she recorded it where she wasn't having a good morning. So
right.
she hit me up and said, hey, like I feel like I didn't give my best. I wasn't in the best mindset. Do you mind if we do a re-recording? And I said, 100%, let's do it. And we re-recorded it. And I mean, her story is so cool. And I've really focused on bringing a lot more female creatives on the show this year.
Sure.
And I think it has to do a lot with the fact that I'm a dad to 3 daughters. two of them in the creative field,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and seeing these women who are killing the game, who are living their dream and not afraid to talk about how hard it can be, how, you get recognized, your name gets put out there, and those jobs still don't fall in your lap. You still got to hustle. So just trying to share the love, man. I just want everybody who comes on here to be true, be themselves, and be comfortable with the episode.
No, and I think that's important. I mean, I thought I think it's interesting to, come back to the show as, I'm in a different space than I was a year and a half ago, episode 10 versus episode somewhere in the 90s. Um, I'm in, I'm sort of situated differently. Um, and so I really could remember I reached out to you. I was like, "Hey man, can we run it back?" Because and I enjoyed our first episode.
It was amazing.
But
The the friendship that we established in that first conversation has carried for the last year and a half of constant notes of support, constant like, hey dude, I can't do it that day, like, trying to find the date that worked.
yeah,
But the coolest part is you actually, I wanted to do follow-ups, but I hadn't talked to anybody yet, and you're like, hey, I'm ready, let's do this. And I was like, that got me on the train. So now I think I have 5 or 6 follow-ups recorded.
oh good,
So now I can do that week, right? So now December 20th to the 25th,
yeah,
there'll be a new follow-up episode every single day at 12:01 a.m.
oh that's dope, that's
Yeah.
dope.
And then I'm making one exception for the release date, which will be January 1st, for Juan Carlos Gonzalez, because he's got a project coming out.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure like I'm there, I'm doing what I wanted to do because that's important.
Mm-hmm.
And I missed a few in the last year that I just didn't have time to get released before the projects came out, and I felt awful. So
Sure.
I'm making exceptions. If people have projects we talk about and they're coming out in the next 2 months, I'm there. I'm going to make
Right.
sure that episode gets out.
You're like ready to get you there.
Yeah. So Jonathan, fill us in. What's been happening in the last year and a half?
It's been an interesting last year and a half, and I so where to begin? I think in this really speaks to the last, I'd say 3 to 4 months, although I think the last year and a half leads to the last 3 or 4 months. And it's really been about, how I'm situating myself and how I understand myself and how I want to move through, the world as a photographer. And it's really come from, really getting into grant writing and open call submissions and having to write, an artist statement. And while I still have a thing, and this goes back to my theater days, like directing plays, I was always loath to, and often just don't write director's notes, because I have that attitude of it's all in the work. Like whatever the thing I have to say is in the work. And so, and I have a similar attitude about specific projects or exhibition sort of things. But I have really found artist statements of a general type to be really illuminating and instructive, because I think up to that point I had this fear that if I were to like stop and try to articulate what photography is for me, what this practice is for me, that I would find out that there wasn't a lot of there. That was, really a concern of mine. Because for me, photography is like truly first, it's like a spiritual exercise. I can't explain what it feels like to be able to, document, preserve, archive images of people, of moments and things. I like the way it makes me feel. And then that always feels like a, I don't know what kind of artist statement that is. Like, I like how it makes me feel.
But that's the truth.
But that is the truth. And being able to expand upon that and to sort of dimensionalize it, if you will, and to root it not just in terminology, but actually going back and literally going back to the dictionary, like, what do these words mean that we often will throw around in photographic conversations? What does aesthetic mean? What do sensibilities mean? So it's not just photo specific words. It's, as you may have heard, language has power, words have power.
Yep.
And rather than, and I think that also oftentimes when it comes to artist statements or things of that type, it is situated around, the premise of trying to convince, because I'm trying to get some money, I'm trying to get selected, I'm trying to, so to sort of mix a metaphor, it's like teaching to the test as opposed to teaching a student for learning and understanding and growth and things of that nature. And so once I stopped teaching to the test, if you will, and really focus on writing an artist statement, that it's become, frankly, sort of almost manifesto like. There's no other way for me to say it, and really giving myself permission to stand in that truth. I think so much of what I've done, as an artist, as a photographer, as a person, um, is how do I say this? Is situated around, or has been situated around, being slow to be identified as something. And I think that has to do with a deep-seated and probably like childhood level fear of being misunderstood. you know um on a practical level, being a black person in America, a black man in America, being misunderstood in a circumstance can like lead to the end of my life.
Yeah.
And that's just a fact. And I knew that from growing up, from being a kid, everything, you know what I mean? And so I think being misunderstood, or having my intentions or what have you not be known is like a real fear of mine. And I think tied to that is when you are identified as something, and whatever that thing is, it leaves you open to criticism, critique, and all of these things. And I've and again, when you tie that back to this tension of being misunderstood, I've been kind of loath to do that. And then as I again was working on these artist statements and such, I came to really think about the nature of declarations and identity. When we hear about somebody identifying as something, our natural human like response is to kind of end the conversation or end the articulation of the person or whatever you want to call it. It's like, oh, they're that thing. So the conversation is stopped. And so I've tried to think of identification as more being aligned with declaration, like I am these things. So this is where the conversation can start, in point of fact, because regardless of my myriad identities or anybody's myriad identities, you're still more than that. We're too unique. We contain multitudes. And so having that and giving myself again permission to make some declarations, and knowing that declarations that they evolve, as I change, as I grow and things, and really trying to embrace, and I haven't mastered this, but really trying to embrace the idea of I'm not going to be understood by everybody. And I don't, some people, can say stuff like that. And it's almost like trying to sound deep or unique or things of that nature. It's like, no, it's as simple as everyone's understanding is not a possible thing, nor is it even maybe a desirable thing. And the only thing that I can do, kind of tying back to what you said, is move through authentically as best I can every day in an attempt to, you know, to get this thing right, to navigate life as best we can. And photography obviously helps me to do that to an incredible degree, because it is in kind of in my joy of going back to the dictionary about things. Um, it's my vocation. And we hear vocation and we think job. No, vocation is centered in like higher level purpose stuff.
And you know what, brother? I want to say, like, just listening to you and what you're doing and how you're explaining it is, I'm proud of you for one. I'm proud of you for being there and doing what you're doing, but you're setting such a beautiful example for your children of the fact that this world is full of endless possibilities. And if we can articulate it properly and efficiently and be direct on what we're looking for, life is going to be amazing. So kudos to you, man. I'm listening to you. I mean, that inspired me. And like, I've been going back and going through old photographers lately and reading their books. And
yes,
I realize I really connect with Saul Leiter. The way he captures, it's very similar to what I love. And he has the endless possibilities. He has a quote about it. And it's, I don't have a philosophy. I have a camera. I look into the camera and I take pictures. My photographs are the tiniest part of what I see, that could be photographed. They are fragments of endless possibilities. It's just like life, right? We all have these things we're scared to do. You've been around theater and acting and photography your whole life. It's been your life, with the Mixed Magic Theater, threw it in there. So hearing you talk about like these steps that you've taken and you've stepped out of your normal comfort zone to write these statements and really emphasize what the camera, this box that captures light, means to who Jonathan Pitts Wiley is. That is deep. You've connected it on more levels than just, hey, I'm a photographer, this is what I do. That camera, that box that captures light is connected directly to your soul.
Absolutely. And I think that I had the opportunity to make portraits of a fellow photographer, filmmaker the other day, and she was talking about how she was watching this documentary of another filmmaker, and this documentarian was just talking about the nature of that. When you see an image, what you are seeing is the relationship between the subject and the camera. I tweaked that a little bit to say you're seeing a relationship between the subject and the photographer. Or in my own practice, again, I'm speaking for myself, making I statements. If I've made an image effectively, it's because I've articulated that relationship in that moment well. Because that's what it is. And yet, paradoxically, I don't know if it's yet paradoxically, but what makes the craft fascinating is that it does exist at something of a removal because there is a camera, there is an object between. And in many respects, and this is also part of, the last few months and what I've been thinking about is, becoming so technically sound that I want to, it's kind of like the focal plane, right? I want to close that distance as much as I can, whether I'm doing a full body portrait and I'm, feet away, or whether I'm really in tight and in the phone booth with somebody. I want to compress that distance, and try to, my mentor, Mary Beth Meehan, who's a tremendous portrait and documentary photographer. She was always encouraging me. She's like, you have all of the content, kind of like the Saul Leiter thing. It's like you have all of the context when you are making a photograph. because I know exactly what's happening outside the frame. I know what it smelled like. I know what the temperature in the room is, or wherever the space is, all of that good stuff. And she's always encouraging me is like, the viewer doesn't have any of that. And you have to do what you can to give them at least an opportunity to have a sense of that other context, but you have to do it in the frame because that's all you have, and sometimes that's camera angle, sometimes it's light direct, obviously, there's the technical pieces of how you can achieve that. But yeah, I've really been thinking about that kind of relationship, that kind of dynamic, and in what it is that I want to um reflect when making work. And in the course of that, I've really gotten to a place where I'm like, man, the slower I go, the closer I get to who I want to be as a photographer.
You nailed it.
And that's on a practical level. Like, I've been shooting a ton of 4x5 recently. I shoot a lot of medium format. And like, again, giving myself permission to say, no, I want to work slowly. I don't want to work fast. Can I? I can. I've done event work. I've done various different styles. Um, but it's kind of interesting getting to this place. Um, this past November was like year 7 for me of like really leaning into photography in the way that I have. And it's been really fascinating and gratifying, and scary in the when who you are becoming is starting to take shape and you're acknowledging it and you're not running away from it. Something I've been thinking about a lot is that rejecting is actually almost as scary as rejection, you know, and that the willingness to say like, oh, I don't do that. Not because I can't, but because I don't. That's, and again, I'm still in this space of this is not something where I'm like, and I've nailed it. No, it's not even that. It's much more accurate to say that I'm currently giving myself space and permission to acknowledge and interrogate, what are my concerns about that, what I say no to, or, the kind of work that I want to be doing or that I'm willing to do. And understanding, do I not do something because it doesn't align with my values? Am I not doing something because it ain't, whatever the case may be, but just saying it's okay to have things that I don't do. And I think historically it's been, well, one, you don't want to close off opportunities to yourself. But interestingly enough, I think I've also had a thing of not wanting to feel like I'm disrespecting somebody's vision by being like, no, I don't do quinceañeras. No, I don't do this. Or, I, it's, and oftentimes it might be somebody who is familiar with me or knows me. And so it's like, man, I'm not trying to disrespect you. But this is where it comes back to that whole understanding, understood. And, in a world where I don't have to face myself and my fears, it's like, man, why can't people just know that I don't do that sort of thing? Why would you ask and things? Yeah. But that's not how it works. Maybe you get to that place where a person just goes like, oh, no, they don't do work like that. But they're not asking in order to disrespect me, nor is it their responsibility to be super up to date to where I am on my practice and what I'm doing as a photographer and what I'm willing to do or don't want to do. It's nobody's job to stand on that business but mine.
Yep. Another thing I'm noticing too is we're kind of on the same journey of, we have this mentality we grew up with where we had to be a certain way, and now we're both willing to stand back and let us shine,
Yeah.
let our work shine, realizing that what I'm hearing from you is that it's so much more than just capturing that image. It's about the whole process. It's about your connection to everything that you touch, you put into play, and the image is just a small bonus to who you are as a human being.
Something I tell actors all the time when I'm in a directorial process. And I love to direct plays. Because I love the work of it. You know, when you're a director, after opening night, your job's done. So like my whole job is the process. We're trying to get to a thing, but my whole job is the process. And you know, something I say to actors all the time is that I don't really care about an audience's appreciation on a certain level because they weren't there shooting with us in the gym. They weren't there putting in this time. So I try to always make it about, I think some of it's also a measure of talking about control what you can control. But when I'm talking to an acting company, I'm like, I don't give a damn about an audience. I'm up here and we are up here. We are doing this for ourselves. We are seeking to achieve something great together. I mean, that is actually literally what competition means, like the Greek competere means to strive towards a common goal together. And so for me, I'm like, man, do I want audiences to come in and like a show? Of course. I don't have the weird thing of like, I want you to come in and dislike this. Um, but I certainly don't concern myself um in the rehearsal process with like, oh, will this play well with an audience? I'm like, listen, if we do what we need to do in this room, it's gonna play well. Or that's my attitude anyway.
Yeah.
Because that's the part you can control. And you know, I have a similar attitude, or I'm trying to have a similar attitude about photography in that it's like, well, did I control every part of what I can control? And then is this, you know, did I make a good experience for a person? You know, all of those things. After that, it's it's out of my hands. And so I can't overly concern myself with it, you know, and again, so much of the last few months has been about I did things backwards in so many respects. It's like, okay, so here's an open call, or here's a grant opportunity, or what have you. And in doing those applications, or in even just reviewing, even if I did or didn't do them, or what have you, it it's really like, now, am I about this, or am I saying this in order to seem attractive? And there's just a point where I was like, I can't continue in my practice on a practical level. You can't continue to make these applications and not have anything that you are actually rooted in or anchored in. Or I don't, you know what? I'm gonna stop speaking in the second person. I'm gonna speak in the first person. I could not operate like that because it felt inauthentic.
Weird moments, right?
Right. So I had to go back to the drawing board and really, you know, how do I take this the feeling of making a photograph and what it does for me, and what I enjoy about it, and put that into, you know, kind of like echoing my mentor. How do I show a viewer who's not in my head or doesn't know me very well or something of that nature? How do I articulate um you know, a portion of my worldview, portion of my sensibility, and how it shows up in the work that I do.
What's neat is you're holding your person accountable. You're holding your true self accountable, and you're making the efforts to put it out.
Well, I have to make declarations. You know what I mean? And I've sat, and so, you know, the other side of avoiding identity of a certain level, or, I'm not saying I'm a person without identity or identifiers, but kind of avoiding like the embrace of an identity. Um, so the other side of that is, and it's, as is natural for any, number of storytellers, is that I observe human behavior. So I can be situated in any number of rooms because I'm like, I can take the tone or temperature of a room, and this is kind of what the vibe is, and I adjust myself accordingly, and I can adjust to whatever room that I'm in for the most part. And while that is a good survival skill, it can be detrimental to identity or having a sense of, well, who am I actually then? If I can be anybody, who am I actually? And probably around the same time of episode 10, maybe a little bit before, my best friend, Kalechi, it's my guy. I've known him since I was 5. We've been best friends since the 7th grade. One of the few people in life I'm like, that's a person I admire. If I could be a person who is not me, I'd be this person. He's that level of person. And he said in the conversation, it's like, man, I'm just trying to move through the world as one person. And that took me out, man. It's sat in my head ever since. I'm
That's
just
like
trying
a
to move through.
mic drop moment.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you. He's like, I'm just trying to move through the world as one person. And that's what a lot of the last few months has been tied to for me, almost to the level of, not that I haven't taken projects or taken work or things of that nature, but it's like, oh, this is of vital importance because I really won't be able to take, another step if I don't do this work. It feels, that essential because it's not for anybody but me.
Yep.
And that's how I know that it is valuable or like valid or legitimate. Because nobody's asking, nobody's sitting here like, so what are your thoughts on photography and you, John? Like, no, nobody's doing that. Um, so that's why I say it's been, if I were to be in the recommending business, I think it's something that everybody should do for themselves, of if you're an artist of any kind. Not an artist statement that is, again, where the stakes are tied to affirmation, validation, grant submission, but just plain old face yourself. What are you about? What
Yeah.
are you and your practice about?
And
And
dude, this whole show is based on that philosophy.
right,
And I like sometimes feel like I'll go back and while I'm editing, I'm listening to it and I'm like, who is that guy? And in my brain's like, no, that's you. And that's the you that you need to show every single day, which is still a hard process. It's hard to put that into play every day. But I've got to the point now after doing so many of these that every time I listen to an edit, I'm like, oh, there's another step. I no longer worry about, like I wouldn't even have known my stream numbers the last few months if I didn't get an email because I don't check. I no longer am looking at the analytics of how many people listen to an episode. I have it set up so it just gives me, hey, 2 more new countries were added, or hey, you've hit my milestone is 10,000 streams. So that's it. It sends me an email when I hit that. And that's all I need. I don't need to do and see like, oh, I got 42 listens this morning, or I got 4 likes on a picture. Because what I'm learning in my own process, which is, I believe is very similar to you, is I've been in a photography freeze. I haven't really shot much in months, which I know you're shooting regularly, but I haven't shot in months because the images I was capturing, I didn't feel were really what I wanted to capture. I was forcing the narrative. I wasn't capturing in an authentic way to what I love. I was kind of trying to change it up because I had seen some stuff that was popular, and I can't. So I put the camera down. I focused on the show, and I'm getting excited now with the project we talked about
Sure.
to really get back in. And the thing is, I'm going to shoot it my way. It's going to be lit probably horribly because I'm horrible with lights, but that's just part of the whole process. I'm going to learn. I'm going to advance. I'm going to experience the moments.
You're going to get better at it the more you not only do it, but also do it with intention and checking and practicing. It's interesting you talk about that because it is about being process oriented, and also it's about a willingness to truly set ego aside in order to make the greater sacrifice. It's something my sister-in-law talks about. She's a psychologist and very talented person. Um, she mentions all the times, like, remember that ego is seeking to protect you. And so even as we do self-inquiry about practice and inquiry of truly about self, it's even understanding how we situate those things which are largely seen as negative or what have you, in trying to take, if not a neutral approach, a more nuanced approach. Now, can ego be dangerous? Of course. I mean, let's throw a rock and show you about 100 examples of ego being dangerous. But ego's first job, it's trying to protect you. It's trying to keep you safe, in understanding, all right, when is ego need to do its job? And when does it need to chill out, and as um I'm deeply moved by the analog and the tactile, increasingly having physical artifacts um that, you know to leave behind something for somebody to find. And
Yep.
I have, and some of that is, I'm a former history teacher, and I'm a lover of history, always have been. And but having something to hold in the physical world, in a world that is increasingly digitizing. And I obviously don't have a problem with, the digital landscape, but something I've said to myself very recently is electricity should not be a requirement for experiencing my work. It can be an aid, it can be a helper because batteries are, you know what I mean? So, but if it's a requirement for experiencing the work, then I've actually lost the plot. Photographs are meant to be printed in whatever fashion. They're meant to be printed. The majority of photographs or photographic history was about experiencing a physical thing. The ability to experience it via a screen is very recent. It's not a bad thing. I have no reason to cast aspersions on it.
You're
But
one
when
of
I
those
go,
guys. No, I'm just
huh?
kidding.
You know, but as I go to my local library and get photo books and get old magazines and all these kind of things, and I'm holding something physical and tactile and real, it's one, it's gratifying, but it also is like, well, Barton, it's not that it can't be damaged or anything, but it's like, oh, this thing is something that exists in the world.
Yep.
You know, right now, if I have a hard drive go down, I'm losing a lot of stuff. I also have a lot of negatives and things, but even that's its own, and that's its own responsibility too, because I have a whole like shelf of negatives to cut and scan and things of that nature. So that's another story, but
The tactile is so important.
it's
And
huge.
I just noticed in the last 2 weeks that two publications from the action sports field are now back and reprinting magazine.
I love that. I love
So
it.
Trans World Skateboarding is back, and so is
Mm-hmm.
Bike Magazine. And the fact that a kid now can have that same excitement that I used to get knowing like, okay, it's been 3.5 weeks, that new issue's out. I'm going to the bookstore. I'm going to buy my 5 magazines. I'm going to go home and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to flip through each one. And
It's
it's,
beautiful, man.
yeah,
Because we convenience, which is so good in so many respects, can also untether us from human experience. You know, it is truly virtual reality. And there's just a difference. There's just a difference. And
yeah,
so like I've been shooting a a ton of like Instax and Polaroid um and sheet film. So there's just a lot of things I've been like, I think that there's, well, first of all, I have a whole thing about just the singular beauty of instant film because it is both the negative and the image, and it's the only one like it in the world. It's not, it is the print.
yeah,
It's not, it is the copy. It is the image and the copy master. And you can't. Uh, there's only one like it in the world. You can, scan it or all that, but there's only one like it in the world, and that's such an amazing thing. But on a practical level, shooting Instax and it's very similar to shooting slide film. It has a limited dynamic range. You got to really nail exposure. You got to really work with it, and you got to really pay the price. And there's something that I do like. And I'm not flippant with my money or things of that nature, but it's like, well, if I'm trying to do a certain type of work in a certain type of way, then you got to pay the cost to be the boss. You know what I mean?
so true.
And I'm fortunate that I have the Jing Stacks RB67 square back from Jing Mountain Cameras. It's been really great to work with because it's been kicking my butt in certain ways, and I'm starting to find a rhythm with it. And I also got I recently picked up a Lomo graph lock back where you can put the Instax wide onto the back of a 4x5 camera, and that's been outstanding. Um, but you burn through the sheets, and like it ain't I promise you, Instax is a 10 pack. I've never gone 10 for 10. You know what I mean? I might get 10 exposures. How many of those are actually good? But that's the nature of the beast anyway. And
Yeah,
I do like that I can sort of document and see my progress and my process, and I'm taking lab notes and things of that nature, and really getting back to feeling like I'm a part of that process. That's the thing about shooting digital that can be harder for me at times is everything's happening in a way that I don't actually really understand. I understand how a 4x5 camera works. Like I understand how analog cameras work for the most part, you know. Um, a digital camera is a computer. You don't want me fixing your computer. I don't really know how to. I'm amazed. And again, as we were, talking off mic, about you get that Leica Q, and I was with the homie who was shooting a Leica Q2 the other day. Beautiful quality. I love it. You know what I mean? So to be able to see it immediately, and just it's straight out of camera looking beautiful. I love that. I would still, you know, I'm still moved by, you know, I picked up the book or from the library, the Ken Burns book, Our America, and it's like all of these photographs from basically the beginning of when photography could be possible up to, is it? I think it gets into the early 2000s, I think. But I really find myself like looking at these, wet plate, dry plate, all this stuff, and I'm like, man, look what these cats were doing. And I don't want to over romanticize it because I bet if you handed them a cue, they'd be like, what the, like, yeah, go ahead and let me throw this collodion out the window, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
But it's something about the story of the process.
it's the process and
Yeah.
that it took the time. And again, some of these cats are moving fast and things, but also I'm like, man, you're hitting focus. Like there was so much craft to it and the pioneering spirit of, hey, we're just trying this thing. And so we're going to do the best we can with it. Um, and there's the process is the point. Maybe that's the thing about life. You know what I mean? The process is the point. We're all trying to get back to the same place, whether we know it or not.
Yeah.
Trying to get back to the same thing, whether we know it or not. That's, again, I statement, but that's the thing I believe. And how's the process going to articulate itself? How's the process going to go? And the most elevated place that I could get to, I think that this could be true for many people, but I will again make I statements, is being able to absorb it all as information and lessons. You know, when I was coaching, I used to be an assistant lacrosse coach at the school that I worked at. And I love the game. That's the whole other subject. But I used to say to my ball players that there's either victories or there's lessons. There's no losses. There's victories or there's lessons. And
It's
I've
so hard
come,
to get that across to
oh,
parents. Parents are the worst for it. You know,
sure,
you can't
but
lose. No, no, I learned something today, but that's not enough. You lost. No, no,
yeah,
no.
and and I've even come to the place where, um, you know, that I've actually gotten to the place of where it's like there's just lessons. That's the most elevated place that I could possibly get to. I'm not there, but that is the place that I'm actually trying to get to. Is that this is just information that I'm meant to process and do something with. Easier said than done, of course. Well, that's the point. It is not easily wrought,
Yeah,
but I think that that's the place. Because if it's all information that that you do something with or not,
yep,
that's the great game.
yeah. Well, you mentioned off mic. You mentioned you had just listened to my latest episode with Rachel Gallipo, um, and she's shoots 4x5, but she captures action,
Saw that.
skateboarding,
Yep.
mountain biking, rock climbing from a 4x5.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that's where, she just happened to, when she moved to Salt Lake, went into a shop, and that was what the guy noticed. He asked her, how many frames did it take to capture this image? And she said, one. And that's how she got her gallery. And, you know, and she's just been able to grow. And I mean, I think I've been a big fan of Rachel for a long time. The amount of hustle she puts out and the amount of people she's worked with has been incredible.
Mm.
But it all comes back down to Uncle Frank, who gave her the 4x5 camera. And
Simple.
I had to make sure we mentioned Uncle Frank in that episode, because when I had originally found out about Rachel and her work, that was the part that stuck to me, is that family was her Uncle Frank gave her this camera and she couldn't take it with her. And all of a sudden she was able to use it. And then she just starts capturing things that nobody would think to do with a 4x5. So
You know,
it's
or
that,
haven't done it in a while. But that's what's also awesome. It's like you see her capturing action in the way that she does, in the respect we have not only for her, but the cats who was like they had no other choice but to get busy with it that way. And I'm
yep.
like, because the 4x, even the press cameras, they're not light, you know what I mean, and they're not crazy heavy, but they're somewhat unwieldy, and just seeing, it's like, how did you get that? How did you have the presence of mind to be a technician in that moment and really get that? But also, again, they're not snapping like this.
They get
They
the,
effectively have a shoebox, a heavy shoebox that they
yep.
are running and gunning with, Ouija and all that. Like, it's just like, man. And
They're the original true masters of craft, because they had to be efficient and they had to know the machine inside and out and be able to do it at a moment's notice. I've had quite a few surf photographers on recently. I'm a
Mm,
huge
mm,
fan of the ocean.
mm.
And the one thing that I always say to them is you must never get flustered when it comes to watching someone do a portrait shoot or a fashion shoot or a wedding, because not only do you have to know what the ocean's doing, the way the current's going, the way the surfer's going, the way the wave is breaking. You're carrying a 20-pound camera. You have to compose, check the light, capture the image, all while worrying about undercurrents, animals, everything else. I mean, like, the fact that they can do this with a 20-foot wall of water about to crash on their head is unreal. And that's what I feel about the originals of this, who didn't have all the amenities we have, Gordon Parks, Robert Frank, all these people who were shooting strictly for the love of capturing, but could do it at a moment's notice.
Do it at a moment. So, I mean, something my buddy talked about. He used to work at the New York Times, and like, how do they, more or less, like, how do they make their selections of photographers? Not even photographs, but photographers. And there was a particular photographer, whose work I really love, and my buddy was like, because they know that she can do that in 5 minutes, and it will be of a high quality in 5 minutes. And this she's a portrait photographer, particularly. Um, Celeste Sloman. I'm like not hiding her name. Just incredible portrait photographer. Um, and my buddy was just saying, hey, she can do it in 5 minutes, and it's going to be there's not going to be a drop off. So if let's say she's got to shoot 10 people, it's staying up there. There isn't going to be a fluctuation in quality. There isn't going to be and there isn't going to be, um, you know, going over time or what have you. And it's interesting you say that, because something that I've really um, articulated for myself, and as part of this self discovery and all this, is that I I don't really align with doing service photography. And do I offer private sessions? Yes, I do. I'm not, again, it's not one of those I don't do it, but it really has to align with my practice, what I'm into. Something I'm saying is like, I have to be fundamentally compelled by the premise of whatever the thing is.
Mm-hmm.
And, now I'm a person who I think that all photographers are artists.
100%.
Um, but I've come to realize that there are many photographers who don't necessarily consider themselves artists. They're like, well, I'm a craft photographer. So let's say that there's art photography and craft photography for the purpose of our conversation. So even my buddy Michael, who, again, and I hope he listens to this and remembers that I fully consider him an artist, but he's like, oh, I don't consider myself an artist. I do this. What I what makes photography great, at least to me, is that you can learn something from every discipline, and it can inform your craft and your practice. So as much as I would probably align with a fine art sensibility, and I do feel the term fine art is fraught, deservedly so, and has a lot of sort of colonizer speak to it. So I that's a term that I have historically resisted, but I more now take the position of it is beauty for its own sake. That's how I sort of simplify or make sense of fine art for myself. It's like the point is that it is beautiful, and I felt compelled to share it with the world. Having said all of that, I I probably hone more craft things or technical things from so-called craft photographers who may not consider themselves artists, because they got deadline, they got to realize another person's vision. There's all of these, dare I say, pressures on making something effective. And the process by which they do that is it's incredible. Like,
Yeah.
if somebody had to say, like, oh, for your if you're trying to develop, who should you more follow? Like, if you're talking about your technical craft and discipline, I would say people, in the sort of craft or service photography area, because of the uh, again, the pressures, the factors, all of the elements that they are having to consider uh, while trying to make something distinct
Yep.
and noteworthy and remarkable. you know um and again, oftentimes in realizing the vision of a whole other person who isn't them, that is an incredible thing. Now, of course, that doesn't mean don't follow editorial or fashion or fine art photographers and things, but I think that, I'd probably say that's more about as you see people develop style, because I think in those spaces, having a spectrum of styles, not necessarily within one photographer, but like there's just like a lot of different styles and ways that you can approach it. And so, like, going back to the Saw Lighter, the endless possibilities. Um, I think that probably leans more into the fine art or conceptual type of space. Um, but really, in the end, obviously, immerse yourself or at least expose yourself to both. Um, and so even just being able to say, like, I I don't necessarily prefer service photography, and just having the courage to say that, because it felt disrespectful. It felt like I'm closing off opportunities myself. I felt like, like, oh man, what am I saying about that if I'm saying I don't do it? I'm not saying anything about it. I'm just saying that I don't do it, or I don't want to. I'm not compelled to do that.
Yep.
Or if I'm going to do it, I need to be compelled in some way. And, you know, sometimes that way is like, well, what's the day rate or whatever. But even then, that's not necessarily the case. There's times you're really like, you know what? That's not moving for me right now. And in those moments, I feel a responsibility to at least suggest a person who might be a better fit. I just think that's good community. Like,
Yep.
I always find it weird when it's like, if I can't, if I don't think I could be that person, my next thought is like, do I know somebody who I would trust to do the work?
Yeah.
And then you recommend that person, if you have them, in your wheelhouse, and if they come to mind. But that's where I've been, man. It's it's an interesting feeling of starting to slow down and settle and bring some things into focus. And what's great about it is there's still a ton of work ahead. Like, so even once you've gotten to that place, or even if I arrive at this place, it doesn't end anything. It's really the beginning of another thing.
Yep.
In other explorations, and I'm fascinated by not only what I'm going to learn in the process, but what will I give myself permission to do?
Yep. And that's what I've noticed too. I mean, I just turned 51 last month, and for the first time in my photography journey, I am content with the machine that I capture light with, but I also want to learn every aspect of that machine and not be drawn in by, by every other great thing that a few months ago was all I could think about. I want to learn the history of the brand. I want to learn why it was designed a certain way, why the color science is the way it is. And I mean, I just let go the ZF and my Z9.
You can say Zed, it's okay.
No, you already made fun of me once. Guile making fun of I'm American. I should know better.
I'm about to sound like you one of us still. I ain't gonna tell the folks up north, but you're still one of us, baby.
It says it right on my passport. But I want to learn everything about it that I can master, can finally say that I have mastered a camera. Because I feel like if I can master a camera, those moments in the style of art that I shoot, which is quick paced, random street, turn the corner, I need to capture this now, but I want to make it so I don't have to think. I don't have to think where that setting is. I just want to look at it, snap it, know that I got it, and move on with my time. Because, time goes quick.
It does.
I can tell you when I hit the 1 year anniversary, October 3rd or 29th of being in the hospital, I couldn't believe it had been a year. And that felt like yesterday. And then we had my birthday, and then we have now Christmas in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it is going by so bloody fast.
Yeah, man.
That if we don't stop and take a minute to look around, we're going to forget a lot of the stuff that the world is trying to teach us. The world has taught us, let's do things quick. Let's use AI. Let's use digital. Let's watch 1 million hours of TV. Let's be on our social media. But how do we, and I'm guilty, like I'm on social media way too much, but I also love seeing other people's work. I get inspired by their work. So it's a double-edged sword.
Thing. It's like, oh no, this is good.
And if you look, it's, you go to the Life of Phys podcast social media, and it strictly revolves around the show and the guests. I don't do anything extra. That's what it is. It's there to show who's coming up and what's happening. And my personal one might get an updated photo. You may get 50 in a day and then nothing for months, or you might get one every couple weeks, because I'm trying not to focus. I'm trying to get myself, my microphone, I hit it and it just made noise. I'm trying to get myself to a point is when I make that cup of coffee in the morning, I have an amazing chair with amazing natural light that I want to sit in that chair with my coffee, grab a photo book, and just lose myself in this history of this beautiful thing that we're all in love with.
In something I've been, so probably since we had our first conversation, episode 10, I mean, we've obviously talked before and since, but since that episode, I've lost like 50 pounds.
I was going to say, you're looking lean and mean there, brother.
Well, I'm trying to get back to my fighting shape, right? Fighting weight. But
I'll let everybody know on camera. I found his 50 pounds.
Is that where they went?
Yep.
You don't have to keep them if you don't want to. If you like them, you keep them. But if you don't, but so much of even that has been, it was never so much a mentality of like, well, I need to lose this much weight or anything of that nature. It was about health-seeking behaviors and habits. And what am I doing every day?
Yeah.
And I do a lot of, lymphatic movement, lymphatic drainage, dry brushing, trying to get up in the morning and not being on a screen I try to delay my screen time as much as I can, before needing to jump into work emails or things of that nature. But that sort of starting your day in a sort of analog or natural or circadian way is really good. So when you talk about the chair with the photo book and I'm like, yes, and So more, I say that's like, oh, I'm going to encourage you to continue that.
Thank you, sir.
Make it a point. It it really does um allow our bodies and our minds and our spirits to like prepare for the day, as opposed to like you wake up and you turn to your phone immediately this time. Like literally you shouldn't. It's like, there's been enough studies of like, yeah, that screen right in your face first thing waking up is not good for your body.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good for your body. um but to your point about the speed with which we think we have to operate simply because we kind of can, and not recognizing that our body is a natural machine that is meant to operate in a certain kind of way. And it doesn't optimally operate if you do other kind of things to it. So even just with the technology, the screens and things of that nature, it's really important to bring those into balance as much as possible, and to, I would dare say, um literally try to give the body what it needs first thing in the morning. It doesn't mean, and then wreck the rest of your day, but but what's great is when you do that, when you're in the chair with the photo book, and even as you move into the rest of your day, you're moving into it situated, or better situated anyway. And it's it's been it's been really valuable and really helpful to me. And I try to journal as much as I can, whether it's a whole long section or just thought, you know. Um, and it helps to stave off the anxiety and depressions and uh those intrusive thoughts. Sometimes you can just wake up and it feels like the weight of that day is just like, I'm right here waiting for your ass.
Yep.
Right. um and it's really an opportunity to take control in a declarative way and not so much an aggressive way. It's not even the like, oh, kick the day's ass. It's just like, I'm gonna get myself right. The day can wait.
Dude, that is the mic drop of this whole thing right there. I loved it. That's where we're calling it. That's it.
Nice. Nailed it.
Boom. Last thing. Where's the best place for people to find you?
Still great to find me on IG. I use that fairly frequently. So that's at J Pitts Wiley, at JPittsWiley on IG and on Threads. And if folks still visit websites, the website is jpittswiley.com.
Perfect. That was amazing, sir.
Thank you for this, my friend. This
Oh,
is
my pleasure.
as I said, you move through the world with curiosity and ambition and a desire to make a contribution, make a positive contribution. Um, and I've often, I won't say watched from afar, it's not, but like, I've watched the journey of the last, year and a half and such, or more than that, obviously a little bit, but um, there's a sense of wonder about how you approach what you are doing. And I I find it gratifying to see the ways in which that wonder is being honored and met with the sponsorships, people, the guests that you have coming on, and just, I hope that that is a direct reflection of the energy that you are putting out.
Thank you.
So the things that are coming back to you, in this space, those good things coming back to you are things that you have manifested, not just in your thoughts, but in your behavior, how you move, how you are as a community member. And so uh it's it's very cool to be, you know, in that circle of friends who's watched it take place and who has been able to participate. Um, as I said, we're ready for you in Providence, Rhode Island, whenever you
Can't
have the
wait.
opportunity to make it out this way. And I really appreciate you giving me another opportunity to to be on the show and talk about, where I am and how it compares to where I've been. And um, I'm proud of you,
Th-
and I continue to want good things for you. And it's just, I'm grateful that we are on this ride together.
I appreciate it, man. That means a lot coming from you. It means a lot when I hear people who have seen the journey. They've seen the whole journey. You're an OG. You're at episode 10.
Episode 10.
And, I always looked at that as from when I was doing the research on when, like, why do shows fail? And they always, 90% get to episode 8 and then they just quit
Mhm.
because it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of
So
work.
that number 10 was my first milestone. I
Mhm.
wanted 10 episodes. That was your episode. We connected on such a deeper level. I started by your episode. I had started to figure out the process. It wasn't
Mhm.
as much about gear as about the person. And as I've grown and as the show's continued, it's strictly about the person.
Mm.
Like I'll have some fun about gear. Like I love Leica. People can hate on me all they want. I love Hasselblad. I love Mamiya. I love Fujifilm. I love Nikon, and I don't love the other two. But it's just that to me is what brings us together and brings this show because we have a similar interest. But the true importance of this is sharing the person for who they are,
Sure.
giving them that platform.
Sure.
So I appreciate you, man. And just so you know, your this episode will be out Christmas morning.
Excellent. That's my birthday. Thank you.
Well, there you go, man.
Yeah. Well, happy birthday to me. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
So 12:01 Christmas morning, this
All
episode will
right.
go live. And then it'll be each episode is going to get a follow up on a week following. Like
Mm-hmm.
the Monday episode will go with the next week. That way you
Mm-hmm.
get, because it's going to be pretty boom, boom, boom for those. I think it's like the 22nd to the 26th,
Yeah.
roughly, or something there, where I'm going to be doing it. But I also feel like this is time when we should be with our families and we're hanging out, and you want something that's inspiring, that's not talking about, the f-stop you shot an image at, or how
Sure.
big your lens was or how expensive your camera was. It's talking about a true journey of people.
Yeah.
And that's what the show is, man. Photography healed my soul, but it also opened me up to be willing to accept and welcome all of these amazing people into my life.
And you've done a great job of it. So I'm,
Thank you, sir.
and to many more,
Uh-huh.
or as many more as you want to do. Let me say that. That's as many more as you want to do.
Well, at this point, I don't think I want it to stop at all. I want to continue it, and I want to keep it all. I have this big hard drive. I want to just keep each episode on this hard drive. And I know it's digital and it can disappear, but it could also be something that when I'm gone, my kids can plug in and be like, "Man, look, Dad did 10,000 of these."
I'm telling you.
Right?
Yeah.
So leaving a mark. And I was going to mention during the show with the new one camera life, I'm going to start saving up 36 images that I truly love, and then I'm going to print 36 4x5s, and that's going to go into an old school album.
I love it.
It's digital,
Well,
but it's got tactile, and
listen, I mean,
that's important.
as Ansel Adams says, the negative is the beginning.
Yep,
So whether it's a digital negative, a film negative, as long as it's being printed and brought into the physical world, that's the most important thing. That's the
exactly.
most important thing. So I look forward to that.
Awesome, sir. And I'll fill you in more on what's happening with the project once I get some information
definitely,
and
please
stuff.
do. Yeah, please do.
Perfect. Well, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and I'm going to just get started. We haven't even got our tree up yet, so I should probably go home.
We were literally doing that just before, so we're locked in. Once again, we are locked in.
100%. All right, bro. Let's talk soon.
Yeah. Take care.
See you later, brother. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Life of Phys Podcast. I hope today's conversation brought you insight, inspiration, or just a fresh perspective on the creative journey. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to follow, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps us grow and reach more listeners like you. For updates, behind-the-scene content, and more, please follow us on all social medias at LIFE_OF_PHYS. And don't forget to check out the show notes for links and resources from today's episode. Until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep living the life of creativity.